Well, thanks for joining us, and love to get your perspective on a few things here. Just as a way of intro, I first met you at the NAR conference back in Boston like a year and a half ago, and at that point we were pitching NAR to be the provider for commercial realtors nationally, which ended well for us. That was the first place we met, but recently I just saw you at the Houston gathering for your presidents of NAI, and what was funny about that was as I came up to shake your hand, you gave me your elbow like this, and I was like, well, what's up with this guy? Turns out you'd already known about this this COVID thing that was going around, and you're way ahead of the curve. So you're certainly a gentleman that's ahead of the curve, and I appreciate that. As a bit of a bio, you've been running NAI Global now. You're a manager of the DC office of Seabridge Dallas for about 15 years. You've been president of the Commercial Board of Realtors. You've got a great resume. So I really want to welcome you to the call. And thanks for being here. I'm glad you can make it. I know it's difficult times, and love to hear a little bit about what you at NAI are doing. The prices, anything you guys are doing special? Has it changed the way you've done business?
Well, thank you, Paul. There's no question that the last, let's call it 30 days, have been a complete change. And it's been a complete change of how people live, a complete change of how people do commercial real estate, a complete change of, how we interact with each other. And certainly at NAI Global, it has been a complete change on, how we're able to provide really what I call services to our customers and clients, because you can't really go see your customers or clients in most areas. And it's not just the United States, it's most areas of the world. I was talking to our German partner, and, they're shut down. Our Italian partners have been shut down. And, in a certain regard, but I had talked to our partners over in China, and there are, some things that are coming back to life. So in a certain regard, one of the biggest changes we've noticed is that people are really reaching out for information and, how to help their owners, their users of real estate. And certainly everything that we've done has moved into what we're doing today with you, whether it's virtual or whether it's webinar or Zoom or online. And so, when you invited me to join in to this call, I think the fact that you have a platform that allows people to conduct business, without physically having to be with each other right now, is an ideal place. And we've been moving a lot of our services to that, in participating in things like this. At the same time, we are the largest collection of independently owned and operated commercial real estate firms, in 41 different countries. We are actually looking at the aspect of, will the way people are working right now change the way people work in the future? So we're investigating things like individual membership plans versus firm by firm membership plans where we have open markets. We're also, just like every other firm, dealing with the financial aspect of this and all the different things that come along with it. Fortunately, we were in a fairly good position coming into this, but that's not everybody. Not everyone's in a great position to ride this storm and to come out of it going forward. So, it's a big change in everything.
Yeah. I mean, so like I speak to a lot of brokers, and I think people were predicting something. Nobody anticipated this and how quick it was. But you and I have been around this business for a couple of years now, and it seems like every 10 years something kind of happens that changes the business for a period of time. But one thing for sure, it always comes back. What's interesting, so you have connections in China. They are probably 40 days ahead of us in this. So you're seeing some recovery in China as far as business almost getting back to normal, you would say? Is that fair?
I wouldn't say that it's back to normal. It seems that people are getting out and about. And so that's, I guess the old saying is you have to walk a little bit before you can run. So it seems like people are crawling, and they're looking forward to, conducting more business. And some of the activities in commercial real estate are happening over there. Stores are some places are reopening. So, in a certain regard, one of the problems we have now is if the retail store is closed, they certainly don't need to renew their lease or look for a new store or even sublet. So, in a certain regard, we've gone to that dreadful, what I call flatness in the commercial real estate industry. When things go on hold, and this is out of no control. I mean, it reminds me a lot of, really 1998, and I know I'm dating myself a little bit, but when the financial markets seized up and there was nothing going on for 12 months. Hopefully this will be much shorter than that, but there'll be a lag effect because commercial real estate always tends to go, get hurt first and then comes out last. So it'll be a little tough.
Right, and different product types also. One thing, so tell me about the individual membership. That was interesting. So in some markets in the US, or is this just around the world, or where is the individual?
Two things. We are traditionally set up with where we have memberships that are set up where a firm joins our NAI Global, and then we give them, which is a geography. We might say that you have the greater Los Angeles area as your geography, or you have Manhattan as your geography, or you have the country of Germany as your geography.
Right.
But what we're finding is that not all independent brokerage firms work that way anymore. Some are working where they cross border, and some are working where they don't even do business within their own geography that they live. They will do business elsewhere. So in markets where we don't have a geography-based member, and we did start this mainly over in Europe, mainly in the UK, and also in Spain, and also in parts of France, not all parts. We do have some geography-based members. We've had individuals that said to us, my firm doesn't necessarily, my whole firm doesn't want to join, but I might be interested in joining. So we have put together a whole plan to allow individuals to join NAI Global. And the only real difference will be is that they will not be assigned exclusive territory or geography. And we also believe one of the concepts there is that you can work virtually or at home, because a lot of people do that. So now everybody is virtual or home, even if they work for a firm. So we've gotten a lot of inquiries, and so we're looking at open markets where we don't have a geography-based member. That's not to say that we won't maintain geography-based members, because we're in the business of having commercial real estate service people everywhere that we can, and essentially have, so because a lot of our business within NAI Global goes from member A to member B, and that's a huge aspect of our business, going cross-border to the different individuals.
Yeah, the connectivity of a network. It's the power of a network, and you and I actually we share a similar. I worked at an NAI firm going back a few years, and also worked with Bureau Ellis, and I've also worked in my own firm, and the difference of being in a network is huge. I mean, if you're in a network and you can reach out to that network, and people on that network know you, then the inbound traffic is huge, and so that's, I think, the power of being part of that. So it's exciting that you're offering that to sort of individuals in certain locations.
And one aspect of it that's kind of, if you think about it very simply from a broker's point of view, I'm looking at the screen that you have up, and it says Dallas, Texas, and there's a building available for sale by Robert Lynn, who is our partner there. But in a certain regard, if I'm aware of this, and I'm in New York City, and someone says, well, I have a 1031 and we want to try to sell some property or buy some property because we're effecting a 1031. What's really nice is that I'm not just calling them cold. I already know them. They're already part of our system. Most of our members know each other, and we encourage that. And so what I like to say is that I wake up every day, and I can help an owner or a user of real estate pretty much anywhere. And, I don't need to have global information because I can generally via email, via phone call, call my local office. And the famous story I tell is this happened in actually Oklahoma City. We had a transaction. We were working in Oklahoma City, and our local member there, Bob Sullivan is his name, NAI Sullivan, was working that transaction with us. And candidly, he was having a drink with a buddy of his, and his buddy says, I got a property that's, tenants defaulting in. And my tenant, who we had a relationship, ended up leasing that. Well, I never find that on your system or any other system. That's the local knowledge that, being part of a network or being part of a firm that has, and it's not just NAI, it can be CB, it can be JLL, it can be Cush, it can be any of the big firms that have offices everywhere. It certainly works really well in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, look, local knowledge, and that's a CREXi, we're a broker site for brokers, and you can't, an algorithm can't replicate what a broker knows about a market. It's just, there's so much going on there and history, and you just have to know that. So that's why we've decided to build this platform that partners with the guy on the ground. And just, I mean, another story, about a few days ago, a friend of mine called me up. He has a big trucking company down here in South Florida, and he needed a warehouse quickly in Charleston, and he called a bunch of brokers. Nobody was picking up the phone. And he said, who do you know? And I go, okay, I know this guy, David Grubbs, who runs the NI office there. Call him, and they spoke, and I believe that he got himself a warehouse. So networks work in different ways, but it's about what you know. And with CREXi, I think what we've done is taking that to the next level with, we'll have 1 million people on this platform by the end of the year. That's a lot of connections.
Now,
is key. So talking about technology, are you using technology differently, even just, through the, this COVID business? Is there technology you started to use that you've are using to connect with you got 6,000 professionals around the world? How are you keeping contact with them? Are you using technology for that? What's your strategy?
Sure. So what's happening is that, certainly GoToMeeting, Cisco WebEx, Zoom are all being used extensively now. Now, most of those were also available, let's say, before March 1st. But, now everything is moved, completely to the video. And a lot of it also is being done because people haven't physically seen each other. So, we had calls with our whole staff that, at first they were just voice calls, and then we switched them to video. And, it was just so we could actually see how everyone was doing. And we had one employee that wasn't feeling too well. But when I saw him on the video last Friday and the Friday before, you could see that he was looking better. So I think the connectivity, we've had some of our member firms have been having happy hours, via Zoom, like a lot of people have had. We are contemplating, should we have a networking or happy hour, by groups? We're thinking, should we have our tenant rep groups across the nation do that? Should we have our managers? Should we have our property management? So we are using technology, really what I'd call the video aspect, much differently than we used before. We're also looking at every single physical thing that we used to do and say, can we switch that to a virtual or visual? What you and I are doing is very similar to what we might have done at one of our events, where we would sit and have a chat like this, but we'd be sitting next to each other versus doing it this way. The other thing that we've done, certainly email is being extensively used as always. We also have something called Basecamp, which is a peer-to-peer sharing platform that we use. And you can post things and you can share information. It has push email to it. And that's something where we've set up a whole COVID-19 sort of subsection. And that's where you might find something that was, that Dr. Fauci said that was publicized, or you might find something that Goldman Sachs published on what they think the financial aspects, or it could be, you know, how 4 of our property managers are handling tenant, you know, abatement request or blend and extends. And so we have switched a lot of things to that aspect. We have scheduled a few more absolute calls, you know, just like we're doing here, because people just need to talk to each other and really work through some things. But, you know, those are the basic technologies. Certainly platforms like CREXi and all of the online different aspects of how one markets a property. We've been recommending to all of our you know, members that don't stop your marketing plan, don't turn your marketing off, just make sure you know, you tone it down and you don't call up Paul and go, what do you mean you don't want to buy right now? Come on, you got to buy right now. So we're kind of saying, Paul, how are you? How's your family? How's everyone feeling? And we know you got a lot of property. Is there anything we can help you with? So we've switched a lot of that. We also, you know, certainly just like any firm, having to deal with the financial aspect of this. And we're, you know, talking to a lot of our members' vendors on their behalf. And we're also, you know, talking to a lot of our members, you know, on the whole financial aspect. And that's the hardest part. We've been trying to get a lot of good information out on the different programs from the government and how they can pass those on to their customers, their clients, whether they use their or themselves. So a lot of things are changing from that point of view. Switching to online banking, credit card payment, ACH payment. You know, I mean, it sounds mundane, but you know, if you have to write a check, that's a corporate check. How do you get it from the accounting department to me, by example, that needs to sign it? So far, UPS and FedEx work, but you know, so there are also basic things we've switched to online.
Right, right. You don't even realize what you're missing until it happens. And
exactly.
And I think you're 100% right. This video conference portion of it, as you mentioned, you know, the technology's been there. We used it at CREXi for a couple of years now, but it's now become normal. And I actually believe it's better to have the camera on. But initially, I thought it was a little bit odd, but I prefer the camera on now just because you can see the other person, you can see kind of how they're reacting and you know, if they're engaged in what you're even talking about. So I wonder if we'll even go back. I mean, will we go back to sort of flying around the country to meet people, or will everything be done via video in the future, which there's pros and cons of that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Actually, so one individual wanted to know about how to get more information on the individual broker offering, which I'll just have them reach out to you. Or is there, if somebody's interested in partnering with you, should they just reach out to?
Yes. Yeah.
Or is there a specific person, or what's the best?
No, they can just reach out to me. One of the things that we've always done, but I would say this is another thing that we're doing more of, you know, pretty much everything at NAI Global Corporate we run as a team. So there are multiple people that, you know, are responsible for all different aspects of things, but they can just reach out to me and then we can get them the information on that. Not a problem. And keep in mind, it only really applies in an area where we would not have an individual firm member. And if you are in one of those areas, we're probably going to refer you over to our member in that area. And we encourage that too, because, you know, that's essentially all of our member firms are made up of a bunch of individual brokers.
Absolutely. So I think the first step is if you don't know if there's an NAI office in your market, you know, Google first. Sure. But you could always partner with them. And I know some offices do a lot of partnerships where there's like NAI Furman, Earl Furman, they have a capital markets. There's almost like a separate an office there. So you can talk to the local office about that. Another question, actually not really a question, this is more of a request from one of your NAI brokers. It says anonymous, but they would love to do a tenant rep broker video call. So I'm assuming that there's other brokers in your network that want to do industry specific stuff. So I'll just hand that over to you. I don't know who that is, but they can.
No problem. I mean, we do have a whole bunch of different video and calls set up over the next 4 weeks that range from, you know, Casey Conway, you know, who's the CCIM economist, to, we're actually talking to a major hotel CEO about what's happening in the hotel industry. And we're also having some of our, retail experts talk about what they're seeing in retail, which certainly is by far one of the hardest hit area. I think hospitality and retail are by far the hardest hit in this, shutdown and slowdown and no travel. But certainly, again, if that broker can just flip me an email, we'll make sure that we'll put a panel together on tenant rep in this time period. There was we have what we call a NAG Global Corporate Services Group, and they did have a call yesterday, and these are people all across the globe. Again, they did share information as it relates to what they're seeing on tenants that can't pay. One of the big questions come in is that a lot of people are saying, well, I can pay, should I pay? And the answer to that is yes. Yeah. The answer is we can't have the whole ecosystem of commercial real estate melt down. So, just kind of like what Related has said, and also Tom Barrack, and, if you have the ability to pay, please pay. And, it's certainly that way. Mortgages get paid, taxes get paid, services get paid, and we'll come out of this. If everyone uses an excuse not to pay, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you always get people that take advantage of situations, and that's just the way to run a country and a society. So I appreciate you saying that. What about, international? Are you still seeing traffic coming in internationally to your broker firms? What's happening on an international basis? Is it just the whole world is shut down now, or are you seeing pockets of activity from certain countries?
We haven't, in general, in the last 30 days, things seem to kind of shut down. We haven't seen, any direct inquiries that, from overseas about buying property. Now, keep in mind, we're only, depending on whom you ask, we're only either 20 or 30 days really into this. And so, in certainly there's so many unknowns of, whether certain parts of the country are going to close at all, whether they'll come back faster. So it's very hard to judge, when, what's going to happen to pricing, what's going to happen to cap rates, what's going to happen to all those things. There's certainly deals that were out there, as I said, in the pipe that have gone through the pipe and closed, and they're in leases and sales. Now, there are other deals that have been completely, put on the shelf, and other deals that are not even on the shelf. They've been taken off the shelf and will never come back to the shelf. So we're going to have to let this settle. And in a certain regard, as I said, retail and hospitality in particular are getting hit really hard because, I was talking to somebody down in New Orleans, and, I think that they're going to maybe be at 5% occupancy, which has never happened, ever. And like New York City is at like 5% occupancy in hotel, which has never happened. I was talking to our members in Orlando. Disney is closed. So 74 million people aren't coming to visit Disney World. And so when you think about that effect to the overall economy of, let's say, Orlando or Anaheim, but again, it's very localized.
Yeah, it is. And so you're right. To speculate, and I see people putting together seminars on what they think will happen. And I think to speculate on such things that we've never come across in our lifetimes is tough. So I'll move on from that. One question I want to ask you. So when we were in Houston, you gave your presentation, your closing speech, which I really enjoyed. And you mentioned the 10X Grant Cardone book that I think you and your team had read. So I want to talk to you about your goals moving forward. COVID probably have changed your plans a little bit, but could you talk about kind of what some of your goals are for NAI Global for the rest of the year to the extent you can, and then moving on beyond that? What are some of the big plans that you have?
All right, well, I'm going to break that down into short term and then let's say mid and long. Okay. So short term, candidly, the first quarter of the year was a very good start to the year with lots of good activity and lots of good things happening. We were fortunate that we were able to have our leadership event in the first quarter right before just about every event on the
Probably the last one I went to, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it got shut down. And we're also very lucky that, unfortunately, we're not aware of anyone that has gotten ill from it, more importantly than anything. So, so the first quarter was actually off to a pretty good start. So all the rules of the rest of the year changed. So, in a certain regard, from the goals of the firm right now are to work with our existing membership to work through the COVID-19, scenarios, which there are many. I mean, there are too many to even speculate on, and really to be, to just work with the whole group with our eye on one day the sky will clear, and we want to be in a position, as a national, regional, global company to help, as we always do, our owners and users of real estate that we advise in all product types, and to really be there. Now, one of the good things for us is that since all of our member firms are independently owned and operated, we do not have the stock market pressures of, let's say, some of our bigger competitors. We do not have the financial aspects that they have. Now, that's not to say there won't be some pain within our group or our membership group. There will be. But, in a certain regard, we're also, in our short-term plans, we're marketing through. We have not changed any of our marketing budgets. We're actually encouraging people to maintain their marketing budgets, maintain and increase their online presence, because in a certain regard, that's about all you can do for this, really preparing that this will change. Now, the other thing, since our firms are all independent, there are a lot of commercial real estate firms that will have to, and you're seeing this already, that will have to make wholesale reductions in force, brokers that will be let go, support staffs that will be let go, and we'll have some of that too, within our ranks, but, it's a little bit different. So, in a certain regard, this is a good time for, as I mentioned, that individual plan. That's a good time for our member firms to be talking to their colleagues that maybe are at some of the bigger firms that have to just reduce because their stock's been decimated. So those are some of our short-term goals. Our long-term goals are to always be the #1 leader of independently owned and operated commercial real estate brokers and firms. That is always our goal, and to grow the revenue of those firms and to grow the revenue that they send to each other through doing deals from one member to another, and then also to really gain more market share in different buckets of that. So, depending on whom you talk to, from Mike Lipsey to financial, we rank somewhere between #3 and #6 in the world. And in a certain regard, we're very pleased with our position, and we try to maintain that position and try really hard not to compete on things that we can't really compete on, but at the same time, really using our local expertise, which is very immense. We have generational firms in a lot of the firms. We're on 4th generation in some of our firms, and lots of them are 2nd and 3rd generation. And these are companies that own real estate, they manage real estate, they lease real estate, they do it for themselves, they do it for third parties. And so, and they're deeply rooted in the community. Those are all our long-term goals, because we do believe technology will change completely how real estate does business. One day, we might be looking at the screen and it'll all be transacted 100% here, but that's still not going to take away the nature of the properties in Florida or the properties in New York, and someone has to kick the tires or manage it or understand it, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I'd see that. It's the virtual world. I think it's been forced upon us a little bit quicker than people were willing to accept it, but it's an inevitability, I would imagine. And certainly as a CREXi, we're figuring ways to help people, if you have to work from home, if you want to work from home, if you want to work from, wherever it is, Fiji on the beach, we want to be able to help people do that. So,
but Paul, the interesting thing there is that before this all happened, I used to always say, you could help a client anywhere because air travel was very easy and very inexpensive. Now, today, the thought of getting on an airplane is a whole different conversation. But again, that will change too. I mean, that will, like a lot of us went through 9/11, and yes, the planes didn't fly for a while, and then they did. And yes, now we're still taking our shoes off, and things will change, but things will change on the airplane. So, I think technology and connectivity, or as you said, being part of a network or being part of a global firm, you'll be able to transmit business, from one location to another, like you said. And if you're really good at it, sitting at the beach and doing it, I don't think the person that receives that business is going to care how he wires that money once that commission is shared. So I do believe there could be some fundamental changes like that. I noticed one of the questions was, how will the workplace change? And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that when you think about, is open plan sitting shoulder to shoulder in an office, I don't think anyone's looking forward to doing that tomorrow. Now, the only good part is, if you do it within a small firm, you might be able to know that everyone's been tested or everyone is well. And you can do your own cleaning and things like that. But there's going to be changes. I mean, there's going to be fundamental changes on how people use space, and will they need as much space? Certainly, if I was in the shared office space business, which we know there are many good and new and old competitors, I would be a little concerned. I would be a little concerned about that business, whether they're a tenant of mine or whether I was running one of those businesses, because the thought of going into a shared office, working at a bench with 50 strangers is not, well, I don't even like going to the grocery store now, even when I have to.
No, well, that's what it is. And people are going to spend 30 days creating these little spaces for themselves at home or wherever they're working from. And it's going to be hard to get them back to these temporary workspaces, these shared workspaces, I would think, because the one at home is pretty free and you're comfortable and it's working. Why go to the executive suite? I mean, there are benefits of it, but I wonder if people will go back. I mean, look, retail's been changing for a long time now, from the physical to the virtual. Offices, virtual hotels I don't see, obviously, but there's some virtual apartments. I don't think that changes, but a lot of the business for sure I think will change. And I think you leading NII through this with your thoughtfulness and planning ahead, I think you'll certainly be able to lead the company into the future for sure. So I got one last question, and it's kind of been on my mind a little bit recently, and it's, since the world has turned sort of virtual and social media and all that sort of stuff, I find it interesting, and you said this in your talk, and that's what made me think about it, that you encouraged, or challenged, I think is the right word, a lot of your leaders that were at that meeting to pick up the phone and call people, right? That's just old school. Nobody's doing that anymore. And at CREXi, one of our things is we deliver leads to brokers every day, and all they got to do is pick up the phone and call them. I think I got sent a stat. It was 138,000 leads that we've sent in brokers since we started. And so what I'm thinking is, if you can encourage them all to pick up the phone and do what I think a lot of brokers don't want to do anymore, right? Brokers don't want to pick up the phone. They want to shoot emails and they want to do the virtual social media type stuff. So any thoughts on that in parting before we close it out?
Well, let's start with, certainly you're a little bit older and I'm older than you. So we have to start with that. We come from a aspect of, we didn't always have tools like social media or CREXi or other things to communicate with people. But look, at some level, this is probably the best time to reach out and talk to somebody, whether it's on a virtual call like this where you can see each other and communicate, or literally the old phone call of, because right now, every call starts with, how are you? How are you feeling? How is your family? And sometimes it's disappointing. We unfortunately had a member yesterday that we found out that his mom was in a nursing home. And so we did reach out, and that's terrible. But at the same time, it's the reality. And so I think over communicating in times of stress is probably a better thing than to do. Plus, you'll be able to talk to people now that probably never would have really wanted to talk about, hi, can I talk to the person who's in charge of real estate because I want to move you. But if you start with, hey, Paul, how you doing? How's it been down in Florida since your governor finally shut things down? If you can start a conversation, and then you can get into, oh, by the way, tell me about how things are going. Tell me about your real estate. Is there anything I can do? Should I get Jeremy in touch with you, his management people? Do they need to talk to you about one of your properties? Or, hey, I was talking to one of our members, and he said he got a call from his tenant he represents, and the tenant said, hey, you made a ton of money representing me. You got to call my landlords and tell them I'm not paying rent. Now, that was an odd call. And so, he called me and said, any advice? And I said, well, yeah. Is it a strong tenant? He said, yeah, it's a very strong tenant. And I said, are they going to be in business past this? He said, absolutely. I said, all right, well, then why don't you call all the landlords and say, I'd like 3 or 6 months of free rent. But by the way, we'll do a 5-year new deal or a 10-year new deal, and let's do a blend and extend. And keep in mind, the other thing a lot of people also don't realize, there's no free lunches in this. If you ask for, even if our government gives you the loan, it's a loan. Right. And at some level, yes, you have to do certain things before it's forgiven or granted to you. So if you're asking a landlord for 3 months of anything, you need to give them something. And oh, by the way, nobody gives anybody anything without proper review. So be prepared to send financial statements. Be prepared to send bank statements in. These are all things that are, as much as you might think you've got a great relationship with your bank, they're just not going to hand you money. Now, if you've got a line of credit, that's different, but you filled out a lot of paperwork to do that. So, being able to talk to people right now and give advice and share stories, I essentially printed out a whole list of our 186 members, and between Lindsay and Cliff and myself, we're calling them all just so we touch base with them. So and it's amazing the conversations you get into from that.
That's amazing. I mean, most people just put that into a group email and hey, how's it going? Let me know if you need any help, and that's it. But to call them, that makes a difference. So. So on that note, look, I really appreciate your time, Jay. I know you've got 100 other things you could be doing right now and talking to us, so I really appreciate it. And with that, I want to say thanks for your time and look forward to shaking your hand one of these days in the very near future.
I hope we get to that point.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Have a great day. See you. Bye. Well, that's all from us at Pro Perspective and CREXi. If I didn't get your questions, I apologize. And as always, we're here to help you. If you need any help selling any of your properties, CREXi is still booming. Traffic's up 23%, and buyers are coming in and looking at properties. So give us a call, and we can definitely help you. My name is Paul Cohen, National Director of CREXi, and have a great day.